Veritopia means right place, and it puts everything back in its right place. It can restore the world to its right mind, but it's going to be difficult for people to hear it. Now, Veritopia is a philosophy, a worldview. I'm pretty sure that this is the right mind that everyone's lacking, so I invite you to consider it and let me know what you think. I think I've rediscovered the unified science and religion of the Golden Age. It's a cosmogony. It explains how the universe was created. It's science because it's founded on the first principles of science. It's also religion because it proves the existence of God and explains his properties. It demystifies spirituality and makes it logical and straightforward, even quite mundane and ordinary. It is the science of spirit, and that is superior to the science of matter. It explains who we are, and where we are, and why we're here. It explains why evil exists and what it truly is. So, if anyone really wants to make the world a better place, I suggest they need to know this first. Veritopia defines a thing I've called the universal plan. It's a 7-step process which is the single tool that God used to create all things. It's a complete reframing of the foundational concepts of reality, at least for most people. It's a distinctly different worldview to any existing mainstream science or religion, but it is logically consistent, and I hope it will at least provoke thought and discussion. So, the basic principles are: the primary mechanism of reality is logic, i.e. everything in reality is logical and knowable by us. That's also the foundational principle of science, so there shouldn't be too much controversy about that. The primary substance of reality is relationship, the Tao. It's duality, not matter. The Tao leads unambiguously to the classical 4 elements. You just combine them in all the possible ways you can and you end up with 4 things, and that's the 4 elements. The 4 elements, where they meet, form 3 creation centres, as I've called them: voice, heart and sex. This will be made clear as we go on. I'm going to show you the plan. These 7 days form a complete theory of everything, which is easy to understand. And I argue that everything in nature conforms to it. It's the universal plan for everything. One tool for every job. I propose this is science, not superstition, and it demystifies the science of spirit, and it's a solid foundation for understanding reality. I also suggest that the universal plan was widely known in the past, but the parts were scattered around different cultures and things. I suggest it was the core of the original so-called pagan religion of the West, and it was the reason why it was able to create a great culture with the fine arts and technology before falling to foreign influences. I suggest that the Christian notions of God being truth and Christ being logos or logic was one of the existing beliefs of the pagan people that the church adopted in order to appease and gain followers. The clear truth of this was then deliberately buried under layers of mysticism by the church over time, so the people lost their true mind. The mystification of the simple truths of spirit, from being simple statements of logic and science into long and confusing stories about people, has served to control the minds of the conquered peoples most effectively. Until you understand the Tao fully, you have no firm grasp on reality. Your knowledge has no foundation. The Tao is the foundation of all knowledge. I know it will be hard for people to accept just this first step on the journey, that the Tao is real, but please try. The universe is manifestly based on duality. You can see it all around. So, this is an outline of the 7 steps of the universal plan. It defines a single creation process that applies to all things that exist, albeit in various different ways. It also defines the form of the things that are created in some way. It's not necessarily easy to correlate things to the UP, but if you can, it's always instructive, at least in my experience so far. The example I give of the creation event is making tea, to show that the principle applies to everyday acts of creation, as well as big ones. But the proposal is it's universal. The principles determine the outcome. They are essentially the laws of nature, and so this is the foundation of natural law. And they correspond exactly to your body parts. The 7 chakras, as they're known. This is man made in the image of God. This is what it means by that. So if you go down this list, we start off with your head and the brain, which corresponds to the element of fire. And at the bottom. So we go fire is brain, air is lungs, water is stomach, and earth is legs. So those are the traditional 4 elements, and then in between them we have the 3 creation centres: voice, heart, and sex, and these correspond to, in order, the parts of your body. Let's start by focusing on the 4 elements. Fire is will, desire, or intent. Air is law, path, and design. Water is action, power, motion, it's work. And earth is product, matter, and the result. So it's describing the process of creation. You start off with a desire, you decide how to do it, you then carry out the action of doing it, and then you have the result. It's as simple as that. In between these things, you have the principle of combining the two and converting one into the other. So these are kind of like operators. They're active principles which combine the element above and below. So voice makes will into law. When you speak your will, your mind, it corresponds to the principle of logic and reason. In order to create a universe, you need logic. You need to be able to divide things, to separate things one from the other. You need to be able to say, this is not that. Okay. In between lungs and stomach, we have the heart. The heart is a combination of air and water. It combines air and water in the blood and pumps it around the body, just looking at the physical aspect of it. And in between stomach and the legs, we have the genitals, and they bring earth into motion. In many ways. Okay, so we'll start with the example, just to clarify. This is about a creation event. Fire is, I feel like having a cup of tea. Voice is internally perhaps saying, yeah, I'll stop this work and I'll go and put the kettle on. Air is the path. So the path is defined now, I know what to do, and my heart makes me get up and go and make the tea. The water is the action of actually making the tea. The sex is the drinking of the tea. This is where we are united and we become one. And in the end, I am satisfied. My tea addiction is satisfied. So that's looking at it from the point of view of creating a cup of tea, but we can look at it in terms of the archetypes. So the principle of fire is the creator. The principle of voice is logic and reason. The principle of air is the Tao, it's duality. It's separating me from my work to go and do something else in this case. Heart is the principle of time. Water is the principle of work. And the 4 elements are the machinery of creation. They're the physical forces like gravity and so on. Sex is creation, reproduction, complexity, interference. And earth is the 7 days, the finally created reality, the 3D version of reality, the final thing. We have a description. So God is undivided potential, the creator is one. Voice, logic divides potential, it's choice. So voice is choice, of course it is. Logic allows separation between things. Without it, creation couldn't happen. Your voice allows you to separate the things that you want from the things that you don't want. Air, the how of things, the law, 2 divided potentials. So that's this is right and that's wrong. It's the Tao. Heart is cycling between potentials. It's alternation, repetition, it's circles. And that is manifest as water, the wave. In sex we have 2 waves joining. So 2 waves are 2-dimensional. This actually also defines dimensionality in physics. Fire has 0 dimensions, air has 1 dimension, it's 1-dimensional between true and false. Water is 2-dimensional, it's a vector, it's work. And earth is 3-dimensional, it's matter. The language column shows us that these principles correspond perfectly with the parts of speech and the question words that we use in language. If the universal plan is God's language, then we would expect language to conform to it basically exactly, and it does. So fire is question words, and it's the question why. That's why you're doing it. I feel like having a cup of tea. Voice is the descriptor. It says which one, and it corresponds to which. Air is logic. It's how. It's and, or, if, but, only. It's the conditionality, the joiner. Heart is the verb, because as we said, it's time. It brings things into motion. It's verbs have tenses. Water corresponds to the pronoun. It's water, because people do the work. People are the work of the universe. They do the work of the universe. We'll see this broken down in another way. But anyway, so water is people. And it corresponds to the pronoun, and it is who, the question word who. Sex is a preposition, because this is bringing earth into motion. So it defines location. Here, there, left, up, down, and so on. And the question word where. And earth is obviously a noun. Car, boat, tree, whatever. And it's the what question. So as you can see, this is at least slightly uncanny that these things fit so perfectly together. One thing I didn't point out, of course, this is a unified theory of everything, so it must also define maths. You can't define a theory of everything, which includes emotions and dreams and things like that, just in maths. So this must define maths itself, and it does. It defines the operators, divide, add, and multiply. And there's more. It also defines physics. It's the precursor to physics, although I haven't figured it all out yet. I'm not that clever, and any help is gratefully received. Anyway, so we have some evidence already, but that basically covers it. Well, thanks for watching. I hope to do some more videos soon, but you can always go over to the website at veritopia.org and read it for yourself. It's not perfect. I'm only human, but hey. Okay, cheers.